What's up, guys? Welcome into another edition of Crush City Territory. My name is Chandler Rome with Tyler Stafford, as always, and we have a special guest. Today, we've got Astros Assistant General Manager Gavin Dickey to do a couple of things. We're going to preview the Spring Breakout game that the Astros prospects will play in is on Friday morning in West Palm Beach. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but I wanted to give fans and people that are watching a chance to meet Gavin Dickey, a guy that I'm sure you have seen his name. I'm sure you've read about him, heard about him, but probably never gotten to know kind of what he does and kind of his trajectory within the Astros system. So, Gavin, I appreciate you taking some time. I know this is a busy time in spring training for you to join us. Thanks for being here.
No, thanks for having me, guys. Excited to do this. Spend some time with you this afternoon.
All right, so we'll get to the baseball side of this in a minute, but Tyler went to Texas A&M. I went to LSU. So we have to talk SEC football a little bit. Gavin was a two-sport athlete at the University of Florida, where he played quarterback. At one point, you were a four-star. ESPN had you as a four-star recruit, committed to the University of Florida, played football there. Gavin, how did you kind of take us through your upbringing of becoming a two-sport athlete when you get to Florida, how you balance that, and how you ultimately ended up choosing baseball?
Yeah, so I actually grew up in Tallahassee. My dad actually worked at Florida State. And then, growing up, I always played baseball mostly. I didn't start playing football probably till, I was, coming up on my 10, 12-year-old age. And I just played it because of my friends, really. I didn't really love the sport as much as I loved baseball. And I just kind of happened to be good at it. So I kept playing when I got to high school. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed just like playing the game much less than the meetings. So the meetings really are what pulled me out of just like the love of football so much when I got to college. But yeah, I grew up in Tallahassee playing two sports, baseball and football. Got recruited heavily to play football. Had a lot of baseball offers as well. Decided on going to University of Florida over a few other schools. Got there my freshman year. And only played football my freshman year. It was, it was a conversation of, hey, you're on football scholarship. You're not going to play baseball, even though that wasn't told to me before. Coming up to my next year, I ended up playing baseball and football my redshirt freshman year. And then I backed up Chris Leak, who became in there. And then I was essentially the last guy on the bench for the baseball team in 2004. And then I earned a starting job on the baseball team in 2005. We had a really good team. We went to Omaha. We actually lost to the Longhorns in the national championship game out in Omaha. And then, played my last year in 2006. And I was fortunate enough to get drafted by the Mariners. And I played a few years in pro ball, played a couple years in independent ball. And 2011, I started scouting. Started working for the Astros. It was my first real job, honestly.
Yeah. So do you feel like you follow, like the Jameis Winston, Kyler Murray, when they're starting to do that? Do you have like a special place in your heart for guys that are trying to do two sports?
Yeah, I do, right? Like I really appreciate it, how difficult it is for guys to do that. I understand the amount of time it takes to be successful on the field. I mean, those guys were way, way better than I was. But it's still exciting when you see guys come along that have the ability to do both, especially in, the ACC or the SEC. It's special to see.
Go ahead.
I remember the years right. You lined up and you transitioned to solely baseball right when Tim Tebow got on campus, right?
I did. So 2006 was my last year in college. I got drafted that spring, and Timmy got to Florida in January of that year. He enrolled a year early. So we were on campus for like half a season, we were on campus for a semester together. And but we didn't get to play football together, but I would see him in the weight room lifting like ridiculous weights as a should have been still a senior in high school.
Yeah, so he gets to go to spring training with the Mets as a baseball player. You're like, What the heck? What did I have to do? sure. No.
Yeah. I mean, he's a great athlete, right? Like he's
Yeah.
one of the most historical figures of athletes, in the country history, right? People recognize the last name. He's a single name athlete. It's special.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. No, I mean, so much fun to watch, and this proves my point that you probably don't have to experience this, but for us normal people, when we're watching sports, there's always some uncle or cousin or friend who's like, why are these people doing this? I could do better than whatever. My point that I've always made is like every minor league athlete
Right.
is the best baseball player their town has ever seen, is the best football player their town has ever seen, the best basketball. They're just insane athletes. And the fact that you didn't even like football and you just accidentally end up at, Florida because you're just an amazing athlete is my point. That anyone sitting at home, I promise you could not do whatever it is you think that you could do on a field.
Very true. It's very true. Like TV, I say it all the time, TV doesn't do it justice, right?
No.
Even in the draft or when we sign international players, they were the best player on their little league team. Like you said, they were the best player in their town. A lot of these guys were the best players in their county, their conference, players of the year. They've been the best for so long in their life. And then once you get them all together on a backfield at the minor league complex, you're like, even the guy that you take in the 40th round or 20th round now is a really good player.
Yeah.
Honestly. Yeah. There's people where he's from that, they tell stories about him. How good he is.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, they're just insane athletes. And so now I for you scouting now, I'm sure I feel like the hard part with scouting is measuring the difference between like the raw ability that somebody has versus the actual skills, and especially in baseball, because with other sports, sometimes look, if you can run a 4.3 40, well, maybe we can figure out how to teach you to catch a ball, right? We'll figure it out. But with baseball, you have all of these raw skills, but they don't necessarily translate unless you can put them all together at once. So, how do you approach that from a scouting perspective of identifying talent like that?
Yeah. So, when I started scouting back in 2011, the transition for me was really easy because I was literally on the baseball field playing 2 weeks before that I started scouting. So I joke, because like I was a way better scout back then because I was just right off the field, right? Like I could see it. I knew what translated very well, very easily. In the older that I got, the more experience I got, I became like much more lenient. Like, oh, maybe this guy's a chance. You start grading with a curve almost a little bit. I think the difficult thing about scouting is profiling a player out and putting your thoughts into words and getting him on a correct prep list. Most people that watch baseball or consume the sport in any manner can go to a high school field or a college field and tell you who the best player is, right? Like that's pretty easy to see for the most part. The difficult part is profiling the player out. Is he going to be able to play this position in the major leagues? Does his tools and skills profile in this position in 3 to 4 years to where he can become an everyday player? Or is he going to be a bench player? If he's going to be an everyday player, where should we take him in the draft? Taking your thoughts and putting them into words and getting him in a proper spot, an evaluation on him is the hardest part of scouting. The evaluation part is probably the easiest part, honestly.
Before we get into some specific names, I want to I want to get your insight on, you have a very rare viewpoint of the Astros as an organization.
Right.
You've worked for 4 general managers. You came in at the tail end of Ed Wade's tenure. You were here for Jeff Luhnow, for James Click, and now Dana Brown. You've worked for a lot of different farm directors. You've worked for a lot of different, and you've seen kind of how this thing has moved a little bit from, a lot of in-person scouting to maybe a lot more analytics heavy leaning. And now it seems like Dana is very much swaying back toward the middle.
Right.
How would you characterize the evolution of scouting within the Astros organization since you joined in 2011?
Yeah, I definitely think the game, the pendulum swings, if you will, one way or the other. And it's just not just the Astros. It's probably baseball overall, right? Like I can remember when we first, reduced the amount of scouts that we had, not on the amateur side, but the pro side as well. And we went to, we started having edgertronic cameras, and we would send guys out with our cameras to take high-speed video at games of prospects. And quite frankly, we'd reduce scoutings, and then we sent out guys with the cameras, and we saw the stuff that was going on Twitter. Oh, the Astros scouts, they just have a camera at the game. Ha, 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 it's funny. And then you fast forward like 3 or 4 years, and every organization in baseball has edgertronic cameras now, right? So it's really not funny. And I think that's a part of just like the evolution of being here over time is, we continue to push the limits of, player evaluation, development, and believe in, the fabric of our organization. We want to be, a forward-thinking organization. And that's something that's remained constant since I've been here the entire time. We want to take chances and maybe go off on a project that other teams aren't doing to figure out if there's something to gain that we can get an edge and, player evaluation, development. If there's something there that's tangible that we can go on to, that we can hold on to, that would help us, continue to be better as an organization.
Since you mentioned it, I'm going to ask, and this may be kind of an odd question, but
right.
as you see in those early days, the reduction of the number of in-person scouts,
right.
I guess, first of all, how worried are you about your kind of standing? And then did that force you to kind of evolve a little bit and maybe learn about edgertronic cameras and TrackMan and things that you probably didn't have or didn't know about at University of Florida? Yeah. And how much did that kind of force your evolution in the game?
100%. I think, I was fortunate enough to, when I started working for the Astros, when I came in, it was a time of change. I got hired. Bobby Heck was a scouting director. Was a scouting director at the time, and he was probably more of a traditional in-person scouting. And we had the blend with, with Jeff Lunau and Mike Elias at the time. And it kind of changed. And I was fortunate that I grew into the change. So, I grew into working with models and evaluating players based on data and TrackMan and pictures. So that for me, I was very fortunate in my working career, because that's how I learned from the very beginning. And I've been fortunate enough to work for a lot of, very, very smart scouts and executives, scouting directors, GMs over the years that, I've been able to pick their brains and continue to build, my skill set out over the years. But you have to be adaptable. That's probably one thing that I've learned the most. If you're closed-minded and you're not willing to hear outside thought or ideas as it comes to, evaluation on the scouting side or even the player development side, you're going to struggle. You're really going to struggle.
Some of my favorite baseball stories are people talking about finding, people who end up being stars, but when they're in high school or they're on some backfield somewhere, and you can just tell, from one swing, right? Do you have anything like that where do you remember seeing a guy and just being like, oh my goodness, this is a guy right here?
Like, for sure, right? Like because I was in scouting from 2012 draft to the 2023 was my last year in scouting. So I've seen, pretty much all the best players, right? Like those ones, like the easy ones, right? Like the first round, the top, like the Kyle Tuckers of the world, or, like those guys are like the easy ones, right? You see Dansby Swanson, you're like, okay, this guy's really good, right? Like that's not, like that's an easy one. I think the ones that are like, that I take pride in are like the lower level ones, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the ones that are, I can tell this. Like Hunter Brown for me was the guy that I saw him when he was at, Wayne State, D2 school, and you're like, this guy is really good. Like this guy, and I've told Hunter this story too. It's like, I really think this guy is a lot better than some of the guys that are going to go well before him in the draft. And I think he belongs in that tier of players. So when guys like that work out, those are the ones that, I take pride in. And we take pride in as a group. Like when you get those right, when you take those guys right and they blossom and they become, all-star caliber players, those are the ones that feel the best for me.
Yeah, I worked for the Hooks in 2015 when the team was just stacked with so much major league talent. But same thing. The story that I tell that I was most proud of was Tyler White was the first baseman.
Tyler White, Western
and
Carolina.
I used to talk to scouts all the time when they would come in. And I remember telling this one guy who I got pretty close with, he worked for the Mets, and I was like, Tyler White's a big leaguer. Like he's gonna, he reminds me of like Billy Butler, just a guy that's like not a ton of power, but he's just gonna put bat in the ball. And the guy kept making fun of me throughout the year. He was like, you don't know what you're talking about. And then by the end of the year, after he'd seen him a few times, he was like, you know what? I think you're right. And he offered me a job, and I was like, no, I'm not gonna be a scout, but I'm very proud of. I was early on the Tyler White.
You were early on the Tyler Wright bandwagon. Yeah, I can remember scouting Tyler Wright and talking about him in the draft. Western Carolina, he played third base. Yeah, he got his body under control. We made adjustments to his credit, and he played in the big leagues. It happens.
That's AL Player of the Week. Tyler
It's very true. It's very true.
I'm going to give Hunter Brown's signing scout, Scott Eberholman. I'm going to give him a shout out. He has told me that the way he initially stumbled on Hunter Brown was he was at a D2 tournament somewhere
in Florida.
He overheard other scouts saying like, "Hey, we think this Wayne State guy may be good." He was actually going to go home. Overheard other scouts talking about Hunter Brown. Went to watch him pitch, and the rest is history. And Gavin, I think Hunter and Tyler White, like that, they kind of epitomize what you guys do very well in the draft. Small schools, schools that aren't powerhouses that you guys find these gems with. Chas McCormick, another one out of Millersville.
Yep.
I guess the simple question is how do you guys, is there an art to that, or have you guys just had a lot of scouts in the right place at the right time and you found these guys?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of a few things, right? Like we take the draft serious. We don't quit, right? Every pick is an opportunity to draft a big leaguer. And then it's a lot of collaboration with, not only our amateur scouting department, but we also include our player personnel group led, by Matt Hogan and Arendelle Judas and Lauren Taplin. They do a really good job of mining players across the amateur market. And then our research and development group, they do a tremendous job as well of, digging in and finding, outlier tools or guys that have unique shapes on the mound, or guys that, profile in a certain way, or have had, very strong offensive seasons that may be underappreciated, to try to, have opportunities to take somebody late in the draft that have a chance to get you to the big leagues. You don't want to waste those picks, even after the draft, NDFA types, like guys like Logan Van Wy, like this guy's got a chance. He's going to pitch in the big leagues. Barring health, he's going to pitch in the big leagues, right? And those are the types of things that, it's a reflection of the organization continuing to, push the envelope and work hard over the years.
There's another guy who I've proudly identified as someone who is good at baseball, and you may not know him yet, but his name is Cam Smith. I don't know how much you've seen of him, and I'm putting my stamp on him as well as someone who looks like he might be good at baseball.
He's got a chance.
I know you've only had him in the organization for a little bit, but look, man, he's the talk of spring training. I can't remember the last time people were, this excited about somebody who just felt like he came out of nowhere. I know that that's not true. He played at a big college program, and Chandler and I have talked a little bit about this of, it almost feels like the the like top tier programs, when guys are really good, they seem closer and ready for big league action than maybe
Right.
it used to be, whether it's a combination of the draft is smaller, so there's just better talent at
Right.
those NIL. Obviously, you know, the SEC or the ACC or whatever can get better players. But I mean, the thing that has impressed me most about Cam Smith is, yeah, he's only had 100 minor league plate appearances, but he does
Yeah.
not look overmatched,
Right.
right? And so just wax poetic a little bit about Cam Smith for us. We're never going to be tired of talking about him.
Yeah, he's easy to talk about, right? Like I think, first of all, as Cam played for Link Jarrett at Florida State. Link Jarrett, I've known for a while. He's a Tallahassee guy. He's a tremendous coach. I remember first, watching him coach when he was coaching, I believe, UNC Greensboro, 10 plus years ago. And the work that he does on the field with the players, you recognize that they're well coached. So Cam already had that foundation, right away. Played for a strong high school coach here, legendary coach in the state of Florida. Played for a really good coach at Florida State. So the foundation is strong of a baseball player. And then you couple that with, obviously it's really easy to talk about his physical abilities. He's got size, he's got strength. But I think the thing that has everybody here in camp so excited about Cam is like the makeup. It's special. Right, like it's special. He's a young man that has a chance to, and you don't see this often. I've been in sports my whole life, and I've said this. He has the ability to raise the floor of players around him without trying, just because how he goes about his work on an everyday basis, his approach in practice is diligent. His attention to detail is diligent. How he preps to play every single day is diligent. And you don't see that very often from a 22-year-old. That's the thing that makes him special.
I have to ask, because we're going to see him do this tomorrow. We're recording this on Wednesday night. He's going to play in the outfield tomorrow, Thursday, in a Grapefruit League game. Gavin, I don't know how much you scouted him as an amateur, but how do you think if that is where he ends up, if that's a thing you guys explore, how do you think he's equipped to transition to the outfield?
Yeah, I scouted him in high school. He played shortstop, and we've had him on the backfield. He's played some outfield for us, and he's been working on it for the last, for here throughout spring training. The athlete he's going to make plays. I expect that he'll have some growing pains as he gets used to just playing on that side of the field. He's been a left side defender, essentially his whole life. So reads, angles off, balls off the bat on that side of the field. You expect that he's going to have some growing pains. But I do feel confident that he's going to catch the ball. He made some plays on the backfields the other day, and you're like, whoa. I think the thing that catches you off guard is, we've seen him and he's big and he's physical, but like he can run. And that's the thing that I think is going to help him cover up some maybe early misreads. If that happens, it's going to happen, right? He's going to misplay a ball. But I think the athleticism that he has early on, especially if he ends up staying in right field long term, is going to help him cover up for some early mistakes that may happen.
Cam is technically on this roster of spring breakout prospects that is going to play in this game against the Nationals on Friday. He may have higher calling. Not sure if he will see the field in that spring breakout game, but
Cam is going to play in the spring breakout game.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yes.
That's a Crush City exclusive right here.
It's a reason for me to go. Let's talk about some guys that are on the roster, on the spring breakout roster, that maybe haven't been getting as much publicity as
okay.
Let's talk about a couple pitchers. Ethan Pecco was your minor league pitcher of the year last year.
Yes.
And if you could talk about him real quick, and then also Anderson Brito is a guy that when we talk within your organization, that he's the first name that comes up from a lot of people as to what he's able to do. So Ethan Pecco, Anderson Brito, give us a brief overview of both of those guys and kind of what makes you excited for them.
Yeah, I think Ethan Pecco, speaks to, I call it the fabric of our organization, honestly, and that's pitching development. Our pitching, our director of pitching, Eric Neeson, and our new pitching coordinator, DJ Engel, have done a tremendous job with Ethan developing him over the years, over the last year. I saw him when he first came on last year, and it was a struggle for him. In 23, his first start, it was a struggle. And then the amount of time that they put in with him, over the offseason, and then where he showed up to at the end of spring training last year as he ramped up to get into the full season, it's incredible. It was a velo jump. The off speed was, much more crisp. His ability to throw just command the baseball to both sides, pitch in all quadrants of the zone. It's special. And, we feel really good about his progress going into the 25 season. And we expect that he's going to have a really strong season for us. And he's going to be knocking on the door to the big league soon. Just, he touched, I believe it was 3 levels last year. And we expect, him to continue to push the envelope and start knocking on the door to the big leagues.
And then Anderson Brito, who throws very hard from what I understand and strikes out the ball. What's exciting? I mean, I see you maniacally laughing as we're mentioning it.
Yes.
What excites you about him?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we've seen videos of, the dynamite fastball, that it just explodes on hitters. I mean, it was a quick rise for him last year. Our international department, led by Brian Rogers, they did a tremendous job of acquiring Anderson Brito. And then, once he got into our system, he had I believe it was a 5 mile per hour, 6 mile per hour jump in his fastball over the course of, I believe, 4 months. And credit to Anderson. He put in the work in the weight room. He got stronger. And then it showed on the other side. He's not a very tall, he's not very tall, but he's physical. He's strong. And the arm speed is definitely there. Early on, he's young. He wants to show off the big arm, the big fastball. So we had to tamp him down a little bit. He was his first inter squad. He was like 96 to 99, which is like easy. You know what I mean? Tamp it down a little bit. So, hopefully he doesn't, come out this weekend and try to, get crazy in the big stadium. So, but we expect big things out of him. Again, he touched 3 levels last year. Hopefully, he puts up a strong year for us. And again, he's there contributing, helping us win a championship at the big league level soon.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about Walter Janik. I know the organization is high on him as well. And I feel like catching prospects in particular, it's so difficult to really project because there's so much going on. Catcher, and there's so many things that are not able to be analyzed as easily with catching, right? Whether it's the way that you call a game or even just like your presence with pitchers, right? And then of course you also have to be able to throw people out. You got to be able to frame, and then you have to hit too. Like it's like you're a coach on the field. So how do you guys, one, just how do you instill that in catchers, and what have you seen from Janik so far?
I think the first thing is, in our organization we demand a lot from the catching position. Just the pregame prep with the pitchers, getting on the same page, knowing the opposing lineup. We expect a lot. Like, we demand a lot. Our field coordinator, Michael Thomas, he handles our catchers, and he does a tremendous job of getting them prepared to be major league catchers. So right away, the workload that we demand of them on an everyday basis, it takes a lot of young catchers by surprise, because for the most part, they haven't even called their own pitches yet. And then you talk about the aspect of, I'm preparing, I'm doing almost an advanced report on the other team. I have a bunch of pitchers that I've never really caught before. I don't know these guys. I'm catching the best fastballs, the best sliders, the best changeups that I've ever caught in my life. And then I'm going to add in the language barrier as well, where like half of my staff may not even speak the same language that I speak. And now I have to learn to adapt with that too. So it's a lot. Like, we demand a lot, and it's going to benefit the player long term. But it's early on. Most of our catchers, they tend to struggle just with like the mental aspect of getting prepared to catch at the major league level every day. And Walker's he did a really good job last year of, adapting to just the mental aspect of what it takes to be prepared and have my pitchers be prepared to go out and pitch and be successful every night. Obviously, the tools are there. It's really solid behind the plate. The catch and throw skills are there. The power's there. We just need to clean up some approach issues, improve the bat to ball issues a little bit. And I think you got a chance to have an everyday catcher. And we expect that Walker's going to go out this year. He's been here in camp the whole time. He came down to Florida early, and we expect that he's going to have a big year for us this year.
I'm not going to say names and I'm not going to say teams, but around the trade deadline last year, as I was kind of feeling around, trying to do my job and figure out who you guys were targeting, a name that kept coming back to me as a guy that was being asked about by other teams a lot was Chase Jaworski.
Yeah.
He is well liked by a lot of the industry. He is on the prospect breakout, the spring breakout list. We've seen him back up in a couple big league spring training games.
Yep.
Already in Grapefruit League play. Give us a little bit of a report on Jaworski, kind of what you guys like about him, and is that pretty accurate that he's well liked among the whole industry?
Yes. Our area guy in the Four Corners, Joe Dunnigan, did a really good job of identifying Chase early in the draft cycle and raising the flag for our scouting department that we need to come in and scout this player. And we actually, we went out and we got multiple looks at a high school kid from, suburbs of Denver. And we got our arms around and we felt good about the player. But, it's almost like an old school throwback player. You got him, we got Chase in, and, he's 155 pounds and he plays shortstop and he needs to redo the swing, but he can really run and he makes a lot of contact and he's going to catch the ball in the dirt. So we got in our system last year, and, one thing that we told him that he needed to do was he needed to get stronger. He needed to gain weight, and to Chase's credit, he did. When we got him, he was maybe maxing out at hitting a ball at max EV of 100. And now, he's well over 100 on his max EVs. He's gained, I believe, 30 to 35 pounds since he's been in the system. He's still running well. He's going to be able to catch the ball up the middle. He hits from the left side. We're really excited about Chase. I love the player, the makeup. He comes from a really solid family background as well. And, I'd say we put him in the oven. You let him bake for a few years. You pull it out. He's probably going to be a pretty good player.
Must be cool to be an athlete, because I gained 35 pounds last year and nobody was applauding me. So it's nice that he was asked to, and then he's a hero for doing it.
Yes, exactly.
Since you mentioned it, Gavin, he is a high school player, and part of you guys traditionally in the upper rounds have not taken a ton of high school players the last few years. Part of that is your bonus pool size.
For sure.
When you're successful at the major league level, you're picking in the back of the draft and you have a smaller bonus pool. Inherently, high school players are going to cost more bonus-wise to get them in the organization. Chase obviously must have been a pretty high up there, a special case for you guys to go after him in the 5th round. But in general, when you're picking in the back of the draft as much as you guys are, and with your bonus pools, how do you guys determine, like, all right, this is the high school guy that we want to go after, that this guy may cost us a good portion of our bonus pool, but we've got to try. We've got to go after this guy.
Yeah. I think our amateur department does a really good job of identifying signable high school players early in the process of, okay, we have a chance to sign this guy for value where we're picking in the draft. And it's a very small pool, honestly, of players that lines up with. And every year it doesn't line up. Most years it doesn't. honestly. Especially when we're picking in the back, and I hope we continue to pick in the back. 21 is the highest we've picked in a really long time, so I hope we continue to pick in the back. But, our amateur department led by Cam Pendino, they do a really good job of identifying who are the prime, high school players that have a chance to be signed. And then we kind of bucket them and we try to line it up to where if the situation fits and the player fits, then we at least give our chance to take a swing at, drafting that player.
We're going to get you out of here because I gave you a time limit and we have gone way past it, but
no problem.
Fun. We could do this all day. Yeah,
great. I could keep you here for another 2 hours. This spring breakout roster better than I do, better than anyone, really. We've asked you about a few guys. Is there anyone, as you're looking over this roster, or honestly, you've been on the backfields all spring.
Yeah.
You've been watching these guys. Can you give fans, us, one or two names that we haven't mentioned yet that are either on the breakout roster or aren't that have enticed you, caught your eye this spring, and that maybe they should keep an eye on as we head into a minor league season?
Yeah, I think, Miguel Ulloa, we haven't talked about him. I think he may be starting the game for us. The jumps that he's made, year over year, again, is a credit to our pitching development department. The fastball is one of the best fastballs in minor league baseball. It's going to play. The slider development has continued to has a chance to be special. And then also his baseline ability to just throw strikes. He's made leaps, steady leaps year over year, and he's close. He's close, and I think he's going to, have a big year for us this year. Joseph Sullivan's another guy that our amateur department did a really good job of last year. Drafted him out of South Alabama. He's gotten to a couple big league games. He can play center field. It's a really good approach. It's power from the left side, and he can run. The profile is very strong, and, we expect that he's going to have a strong year for us as well. He's going to be in the game also.
Making it full circle, too, because Joseph Sullivan is the grandson of a former SEC quarterback.
Heisman Trophy winner.
Pat Sullivan. That is Joseph Sullivan's grandfather. Gavin, we appreciate you taking time. This has been great.
For sure.
But every scout that I talk to, I always have to ask them, and we'll end on this question.
Yep.
Who is the best player you ever scouted?
The best? Man, that's tough. I don't know. Jeez.
And look, my favorite
really good ones.
My favorite answers are honestly not Bryce Harper or insert that or Steven Strasburg. I like guys that were just unbelievable college players or unbelievable high school players that just for whatever reason were very ordinary in Major League Baseball or never made it to the show. Just those are the interesting ones to me. Do you?
Yeah.
Maybe it doesn't even have to be an Astros guy. It can be a guy that got picked.
Yeah.
Do you have one of those guys?
Yeah, I would say probably. Gunnar Henderson was really good. AJ Puck at Florida was I thought it was the most slam dunk, can't miss. This guy's going to pitch in the big leagues. He was 6'7", Friday night, SEC lefty is 96 to 100. He's going to pitch in the big leagues. It's probably, somewhat along those lines. You get those college SEC bats or ACC bats that come through every now and then, and they're just all right, this guy's going to pitch, go to the big leagues, he's going to play really fast. It's probably one of those guys along those lines like that, I would say probably.
I feel like the market inefficiency for a while was just wait to see which pitchers signed with or committed to Texas A&M, and then just pick them in the first or second round.
Yeah,
eight guys a year would commit to A&M and then get picked in the first or second round and not end up coming.
Yep, a lot of guys go to A&M though. They do a good job of getting some good players there.
Again, I promise this is the last one, but as we're talking, Paul Skeens is in the front of my mind. I mean, I went to LSU. I'm always thinking about LSU people, but you guys going into that draft, you guys knew you had no prayer of getting
for sure.
I guess, how do you approach that when like you're at these games? Like, do you guys, for lack of a better word, do you even like waste your time writing him up? Or like,
Yeah, for sure, right?
When you have guys that are like very clearly going to go in the top 10 of the draft, do you guys even
Yeah.
write them up? Or like, do you guys, to be efficient, do you guys just not waste your time with them?
Yeah, we definitely document it, right? Like you want a historical, historical reports on the players that we're going to use over the years. So I did watch Paul Skeens. He was very good. Short list of, tee me up. Short list of very good players that I saw over the years in college. But yes, you go in to see, and most of the times when guys are, at a big school, you're there to see someone else, honestly, especially if it's a pitcher. Like I'm probably there to see the bats or the pitcher on the other team, but this guy's pitching and we're picking in the back of the draft. We know we don't have a chance, but I'm still going to write the report. I'm going to document it because, believe it or not, we have reports that date back to 2011, 2012 that, we may pull the report up when we're looking to do a trade or when we're doing makeup stuff on a player or a player's a minor league free agent or a professional free agent. That stuff still is useful information to some degree when you're making decisions, sometimes a decade later. We still use it.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? So you heard it here first. The Astros are going to trade.
Trading for Paul Skeens. Here it comes.
The Astros are trading for Paul Skeens. And you'll have the historical report that was written when they had no chance of taking him in the draft. Gavin, this has been very, very insightful. I very much appreciate it. I know we've talked about how long your days are in spring training, how long everyone's days are in spring training. Appreciate you carving out 35, 40 minutes to talk with us and talk with the fans, give them a little insight as to some of the baby Astros, who's coming and who could comprise that next core. Guys, if you enjoyed this, please rate and review on Apple. Please subscribe on YouTube. You'll get alerted every time we go live, every time there's a new podcast up, and we will be back at the beginning of next week. Again, 2 times a week in spring training, and then on opening day, March 27th, we go to 3 times a week in the regular season. So this has been great. Gavin, again, very much appreciate your time. Thank you. Tyler, you were good too, I guess.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, guys.
Thanks for having me.